The Florida Gators have a chance to shape their entire 2025 recruiting class in the next few weeks.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And we're talking about how the Florida Gators can use these next few weeks to really shape their 2025 recruiting class. You look at who's here right now, and in order from their recruiting rank down, you've got Jalen Wiggins is your highest ranked recruit for the 2025 class for the Florida Gators right now. Defensive lineman, 6'5", 245, is a 4-star recruit, 67 in the country. Peyton Joseph is your second highest rated recruit. Interior offensive line, 6'3", 309, 4-star recruit, 107th in the country. Waltez Clark, running back that played D-end previously. Wild stuff. 4-star recruit, 237th nationally ranked. If he works out at running back, I would expect that number to climb pretty significantly. But again, not someone that's really done it that much. Josiah Abdullah at receiver is a 3-star from Georgia. He's 5'10", 175, not nationally ranked, 88th receiver in the country. Also, because I didn't mention, Jalen Wiggins is from Tallahassee, Florida. Peyton Joseph is from Warner Robins, Georgia. And Waltez Clark is from Tampa, Florida. And then Enoch Wangui is from the UK, but he is currently in Jacksonville at Zarapath Academy. 6'7", 315 pounds is what he's listed at now. Last year he was listed at 6'7", 6'7", 285, so up 30 pounds from last year. 3-star right now, which we'll see how it works out for him. He's one that we'll talk about in just a couple of minutes. But of that list of 5 right now, which quantity, I don't think you're in a bad spot. I don't think having 5 commits at this point in very early April is a bad spot to be in at all, especially when you consider a lot of these commits happen late spring, summertime. So having 5 right now, not a bad spot to be in. I do think that when we talk about who's the biggest flight risk of who's the biggest transfer flip, whatever you want to call it, Jalen Wiggins is probably the one that I think of, just because when Jalen Wiggins initially committed, I think it was like January 27th or something like that. It was like late January. When he initially committed, it was thought of as like a surprise. No one was really like, oh yeah, Jalen Wiggins is about to pop. It was thought of as a surprise when he committed, which kind of just makes me think like the fact that people weren't feeling that was going to happen tends to be a little bit of a indicator, I want to say, of maybe he's making decisions on a whim. Maybe he's not. Maybe he knew it and just didn't say anything. But usually, even the ones that are surprise commits, some of us get, or sometimes there's a little whispering. It's like, hey, this kid could commit at any point now, and it's probably going to be Florida. But Jalen Wiggins also lives in Tallahassee, which, granted, Tallahassee's not far from Gainesville. It's not too far from Gainesville where you can't make that trip pretty often, but easy to make trips to Florida State if that's going to be a thing that he's considering late in the cycle. We know that he's taking visits, but he said he's still locked in with Florida, but we've been burned before on that as Gators fans. So we've seen that plenty. My favorite commit right now is Peyton Joseph on the interior offensive line. He's a great athlete, and he's on the interior in Warner Robins, which is pretty sound just place for college football players to come out of. Recruiting tends to be there tend to be quite a few guys coming out of Warner Robins. in Georgia, or Warner Robins, Georgia. And so Peyton Joseph is one that I do really like. Watching his film again, he's a great athlete. You could tell he moves really well and looks decent in pass protection. And for me, that's a big thing because it's kind of easy to teach people to run block. You got to be strong enough to do it, and you got to be able to move down and get that leverage. But it's easier to teach people to go downhill and be proactive as opposed to sitting in pass pro and being reactive, right? Like pass pro is not passive. Like, let's not get that one confused. It's not passive, but you're reactive with how you deal with the pass rushers. Because you can't go into it and going, okay, when he comes in, I'm gonna hit this shoulder and just deal with it there. Because what if he's spinning, or what if he's doing something else? So you have to be really reactive in pass protection. It's way more difficult to be good at. And so for Peyton Joseph to already be pretty good at that, I'm a fan of it. Like to already be pretty good at dealing with being a pass blocker is huge. And so for Peyton Joseph, that's why I love the commitment. I love the recruit. I hope that Florida keeps him, because I'm going to be really upset if they don't. It's not easy to find guards or any high school offensive lineman that's already good in pass protection. It's just not. One of the reasons that I liked Francis Mauigoa so much, I felt he was pretty good in pass pro. And again, obviously he didn't come to Florida, but this is one of those things where it's hard to find. You got a guy committed. Please maintain that commitment. And I do think that when we talk about the biggest pop potential, we'll say, like the biggest boom potential, which in turn does usually bring the biggest bust potential as well, it's got to be Enoch Wangoi, right? Like Enoch is from England, played basketball for the huge majority of his life, and then just last year when he moved to the US, picked up football while he was here. And you look at this commitment list, Enoch Wangoi, even if this commitment list becomes 25 people, Enoch Wangoi is probably still going to be the biggest pop potential player. Like that, I want to make it clear. It's not just because there's 5 kids and he's got decent. He's probably one of the highest ceiling players in the entire 2025 class right now. Just because he's a 3-star kid that has elite measurables. 6'7", 315. If that 315 is legit, even if it's 285 right now, that's not in a bad spot to be in when you consider he's going to have 2 years before anyone's expecting him to even touch a football field in an actual game in the college level. Because you got this year where he's a senior, and then you got next year where you don't want a true freshman playing much on the offensive line anyway. So you got 2 years to gain that weight, even if he's 285, which has been listed last year. Now he's listed at 315. So even if there's that weight gain that has to happen, not a huge concern, right? The elite measurables, 6'7", he's got, I think it was a 7'1" wingspan. It's insane. Like, we've seen basketball players go play football and succeed before. Usually it's at tight end or D end, but also usually they're not 6'7". Usually they're like 6'4", and then they go play there. So Enoch Wangoi could be awful. Like, he could be terrible. He could be amazing, and you swing on potential at premium positions. That's what you do in college. It's what you do in the NFL. You got a premium position that you can have a stud at. You go and you get that football player for your team, and that's what they did with Enoch Wangoi. So I don't care about the ranking. I don't care about any of that. You got a guy who has elite measurables and can be awesome. I'm happy with it. I don't care. Don't get too many of them, but I'm happy with having that guy, right? Not going to be mad at it. We are going to talk about the offensive recruits that Florida is going to try to add to this recruiting class in just a second, but first, a quick word from FanDuel. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel is making it even more exciting to get in on the action. I don't know about you guys, but Dinger Tuesday, which if you don't know, Dinger Tuesday is a FanDuel promo that runs every Tuesday during baseball season, where you opt in. First off, you opt in, then you pick a player, you bet $25 for them to hit a home run. And if they don't hit a home run, then you get $5 in bonus bets back for every home run they do hit, up to 25. So pick a place that's playing at Coors Field, pick a player that's playing Coors Field, and you either get it right or more likely you're getting your money back. And it's great. It was great for me this past Tuesday. It was the first Dinger Tuesday of the season, obviously. I had Wyatt Langford and Jake Berger not hit home runs, but I had Christian Yelich and Christopher Morel hit home runs. It was sick. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just saying, 200 spend on Dinger Tuesday if you want, whatever it may be. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And we're going to talk about offensive recruits right now. We'll talk defense later. But some of the offensive recruits that I did want to talk about, Javen Boggs is someone that we talked about on the show, I think it was last week with Brian Smith, who I know you all love him. But Javen Boggs recently decommitted from Ohio State. Florida is right now, I think, to be perceived as the public favorite, which, again, like public perception means nothing. We all thought Cormani McClain was going to be a Florida Gator, right? But I do think right now Florida's perceived to be the public favorite for Javen Boggs. But I also do think this is going to be a recruitment that takes a bit of time, because I think when we look at a lot of high school kids and they decommit from somewhere, if they don't have a spot where they immediately want to go, and it's literally just, I don't want to be at the spot that I committed to, which for Javen Boggs could be, I don't want to go all the way to Ohio. Could be a big thing. Like, I want to stay in the South. Could be the reason. And so he's not like, oh, I decommitted from Ohio State so I can commit somewhere else. It's just, I decommitted from Ohio State because I don't want to be there. And I do think that that's more what we're looking at. Javen Boggs was on campus earlier this week for the Florida Gators. Florida is considered, I believe, to be the public perception favorite right now. And in recent months, because I do think this is going to be one that probably gets a commitment, I want to say August before the season starts. It's probably going to be an in-state battle with a lot of Florida schools and probably another school or two in the Southeast region. I do think the Florida should be able to lock this one up. That's how I feel there. Ryan Montgomery is another player to talk about, the quarterback from Findlay, Ohio. I think that if you can convince him to commit, it's also, I want to say it's also weird. If I'm not mistaken, there's still quite a few of the higher ranking quarterbacks available right now, which is just, I feel like a pretty odd spot to be in, just because it's so uncommon. Like, quarterbacks tend to commit earlier so that they can help fill out the class that they're going to be playing with, because it is obviously very important to have your class filled out with you. But of the top 6, 4 of them are committed. The top 4 are committed. And then you've got Hassan Longstreet, Matt Zollers, Antoine Hill, who Florida's also in on. Nico's brother, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Madden Ayamaleviava. Ryan Montgomery, who, like I said, Ryan Montgomery, Findlay, Ohio, is another one who it looks like that's going to become an SEC battle right now. Malik Washington. There's a ton of kids in the top like 15 quarterbacks that are all 4 stars, and also 4 stars go way down the list for, it's not just the top 14 that are 4 stars that are uncommitted right now, which I feel like is really weird to have in April, just because so many of them tend to commit early and fill out the class. I mean, when Florida landed DJ Lagway in 2022, it was December, I believe, like December 7th or something like that. And DJ Lagway was like, hey, I want to fill out my recruiting class and make it a good one. And so I feel like we see that happen often, but right now, not the case. But for Florida with Ryan Montgomery, you have to feel like you're in good position. South Carolina's threatening, but you have to feel like you're in good position. But if you can land that makes it so much easier to finish the job with Javen Boggs, with other receivers, with tight ends, with the offensive line. Everything on your offensive side of recruiting becomes considerably easier when you lock in that quarterback. Because when you lock in that quarterback, all the recruits that commit at that time are like, okay, this is who's going to be throwing to me in my NFL year, basically, of DJ Lagway is going to be throwing to me for the first 2 years of my career, presumably, and then he's going to be gone. And then in the NFL years, the years that will get me to the NFL, not the years where I'm in the NFL, but the years that get me to the NFL, this is who my quarterback is going to be. And that's a good selling point if you can land a top quarterback. Now, for Florida, you do get the distinct advantage, or you get to be in the position where you go, we don't need an elite QB for the 2025 class because we just took the best one in the 2024 class, and he's going to be your starting QB for at least the first 2 years of your career. And so we'll have someone else by then. But you get that, but also it does help to have the QB that can recruit and go, hey man, like let's do it. Like you're my kind of receiver, whatever it's gonna be. Speaking of receivers, Florida's in on a lot of them. And we recently got the information. I forgot who reported it, but we knew Florida was looking for 3 or 4 receivers. Like that was always a thing. That's the thing they do every year where they're looking for 3 or 4. This year they want 4. Okay. They have 1 right now in Josiah Abdullah, but they want 4. That's the number that we found out recently. That's a number we're going to run with. They haven't been shy about it. They've got a lot of names that they are looking for. Like Javen Boggs is someone that I mentioned that should be an absolute priority for the Florida Gators as far as targeting wide receivers go. Like Javen Boggs has to be right at the top of the list if you're the Florida Gators. Also, you look at Caleb Cunningham as someone who's visiting. He's taking his unofficials. Hopefully, unofficial will actually happen there. Vernell Brown III is another name that I know that right now there was a crystal ball put in for Ohio State. And I remember everybody getting very upset about that. But also, Vernell Brown Jr. has said that he's letting his son make his own decision. He's not telling him Florida. He's not telling him whatever. That he's just letting his son make his decision. So I feel like in those cases, the legacy thing doesn't hold as sturdy. Like if he's truly just like, yeah, I'm letting my son make his decision, whatever it is, it is. I'm not going to try to push him in any direction. I don't think the legacy part of that then really holds that much weight. Like you should because you grew up around it, but also if you're letting him make his decision, then I don't think personally, I wouldn't be like, oh, my parents went there, so I'm going to go there. That wouldn't be a huge thing for me. Which maybe I'm wrong for that, but that would be my approach to it. And then you also got Dalen Upshaw's another one, Sam Turner, Tyler Williams. Like Florida's pushing a lot of receivers. I would expect to pop at least one of them within the next month and a half, and try to add that when you have these unofficials wrapping up and you get to continue pursuing these kids. We are going to flip to the defensive side of the football to wrap up today's show. But first, a quick word from Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug directly into your existing TV, which is what I indeed have plugged into the back of my existing TV in my living room. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, which was the worst time of my life for a New York Mets fan, or college basketball tournament, which was one of the worst times of my life as a Florida Gator fan, you're going to want to have a Fire TV stick and Fire TV channels. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, the NBA, NHL playoffs, MLB is here and beautiful. I love it. Like I just have all day now MLB on my screen. It's amazing. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. To learn more, visit amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are talking about some defensive players that Florida is looking to add to their commitment list for the 2025 recruiting class, which I will say 2024, they did, I think, a pretty good job of adding defensive players. I was kind of not confused, but I was kind of surprised looking at the 2024 class and the defensive commits, considering that you had a top ranked quarterback. I feel like it was a pretty defensive heavy class, which was just not bad, just interesting to me. Like you had DJ Lagway, the number 3 player in the country, the number 1 QB in the country. And then after that, you added an offensive tackle, a running back, 2 receivers, another offensive tackle, another running back, interior offensive lineman, tight end, and another tackle. And it's like I feel like when you add a high ranking quarterback, you usually see a lot of receivers go. But Florida went D line, linebacker, safety, linebacker, D line. Like, it was a lot along the defensive line, which again isn't a bad thing at all. I do think that we see this class be a little bit more offensive heavy, which right now it is. There's one defensive commit, highest ranked commit, but one defensive commit here. And so I think we see this class be more offensive heavy, but Florida's still going to add to their defense. I mean, Isaiah Gibson is one of the biggest names that is also from Warner Robins, Georgia, similar to Peyton Joseph, who's on the interior offensive line there. And hopefully that little connection will again, hopefully entice someone like Isaiah Gibson to want to be a Florida Gator there, where you can look at it and say, like, yeah, sure, maybe we consider being from the same hometown, different high school, same hometown as a connection. But I would also think that maybe you do have those connections. And Isaiah Gibson is currently a USC commit, but I'm not bought in on the USC commits that they got in recent weeks. Just not something that's going to be a big sell for me. But Isaiah Gibson is a big time edge. And yeah, I'm hoping that that hometown connection will have Peyton Joseph in his ear. It's like, hey man, like we could both be from Warner Robins and go to Gainesville. So there's that. Andrew Maddox, highest ranked defensive lineman out of Mississippi, takes a visit this weekend to Gainesville. And I'm curious, one, can you get a commitment from him at some point? And two, can you retain a commitment on the defensive side from Mississippi? Because obviously, yes, Florida brought in Jamonta Waller, or Florida got Jamonta Waller to commit to them last year. And then by the end of that class, it all went kaput. Which, yeah, wasn't a huge shock at the time, because it kind of felt like it was coming. It was like the Amaris Williams, where we were like, all right, like it feels like it's happening, but we'll see if it actually does. Both of them actually did. But with Andrew Maddox, can you land that commitment and retain it? Because it's also a different guy recruiting him. Last year was Mike Peterson, and Sean Spencer was part of it, as was Jay Bateman. This year, Jay Bateman and Sean Spencer are both gone. So for Andrew Maddox, who's more D-line, not edge, then it would be Gerald Chapman. And so different coaching staff, or different recruiting staff, different recruiting position will hopefully do a better job of retaining him there. Then there's Tavion Wallace, who I'm a big fan of at linebacker. A lot of competition for him. Like his offer sheet. Let me pull up his offer sheet, because he is someone that is just a dude. Like there's just no other way to put it. Tavion Wallace out of Georgia, also linebacker. His offer list is quote unquote bonkers. Florida State, Georgia, South Carolina, Arkansas, Arizona, Auburn, Boston College, Cincinnati, Florida, FAU, Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech, Kentucky, Louisville, LSU, Memphis, Michigan, Mississippi State, Missouri, Ohio State, Troy, UCF, USC, Western Kentucky. That was the huge majority of that list. Power 5, like high level Power 5 football, Power 4 football. I'm never going to get over that. High level Power 4 football. The huge majority of that list. He does have a brother in Trevin Wallace, who was at Kentucky NFL draft. But there's a lot of competition for Tavion Wallace's signature, or Tavion Wallace's commitment at this point. But when you watch him, if you haven't watched him, just find some tape. Just find some tape of Tavion Wallace. It's fun to watch. He is athletic as hell. Like no other way to put it, athletic as hell. And he hits. Anybody here, raise your hand if that's not something that you want. Like raise your hand if you don't want an athletic headhunter. Nobody, right? No, nobody. Everybody wants that. Like, and Tavian Wallace is fun as hell to watch. 6'1", 210 is. He looks like he's got long arms, which makes sense. His brother does as well, so that would fit in with just genetically. But Tavian Wallace gonna be a fun player. Hilton Stubbs is another one that safety, and I know that a lot of Florida Gators fans, myself included, felt pretty confident about landing Hilton Stubbs' commitment. I still feel kind of confident. Obviously, I feel less confident, but I am not sold at all on Hilton Stubbs' commitment to USC sticking. Similar to the reason for Isaiah Gibson, that it is really hard to have a kid from across the country, a kid from the Southeast, because Isaiah Gibson is from Georgia and Hilton Stubbs is from Florida. It's really hard to have a kid from the Southeast commit 9 months away across the country and maintain that commitment. It's really hard to get a kid from 30 minutes away to maintain a commitment for that long. Okay? So for me, I'm not bought in at all that Hilton Stubbs and Isaiah Gibson will end up as USC Trojans. It's just really hard, especially if things don't go awesome this year in USC without Caleb Williams, and they couldn't win games with him. I think there might be a little bit of uncomfort there as well when the season hits. But thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. If you want to be a Locked On Gators insider, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators. Link is in the description below. It is the first 2 weeks free, $5 a month. After that, we've got exclusive content. I give you rumors when I hear them, or straight up tell you news before it actually hits the airwaves. But we will be back tomorrow, talk more Florida Gators football, talk more Florida Gators recruiting. Brian Smith will be with us tomorrow. For Locked On Gators, I am Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I will see you all next time.